Okay, we're going to start with the upper part of the boot. And so these are the 3 pieces that you need. This is the middle of the boot. These are the 2 sides. I'm going to use black thread just so that it shows up hopefully a little bit better. You'd probably want to choose a coordinating thread that would work with your fabric instead, but hopefully this will make it a little easier for you to see. The way I'm going to sew these together is right sides together. Just going to preview what it's going to be like here. And then that's going to be the part that wraps around the doll's leg. So I'm going to go ahead and sew these seams. I'm using 1/4 inch seam allowances, and those are already built into the pattern, so you don't need to add any extra, but just make sure that you use 1/4 inch seams. Otherwise your boots won't fit. Got kind of caught a little bit at the beginning. I think it will be okay. And do the other side. Okay, so there's the upper part of your boot. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make this, give it the slouch for the slouch boots, and the way we're going to do that is by gathering on these 2 seams. So you could probably use an iron, but for the sake of time I'm just going to finger press these open, but I would suggest you get an iron and iron open your seams. So I'm going to set my stitch length to the longest length so I can do some gathering stitches. And I'm going to put 2 rows of gathering stitches along each of these seams. Now this is going to show up on the outside of your boot, which is kind of nice. It kind of makes a decorative element as well. You can pull those gathering threads out if you want, but you can also just leave them if you don't mind the way it looks. Okay, so can you see that? I've got 2 rows of gathering stitches. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather along these threads just by holding 2 and kind of smushing the fabric down. Now this is going to be the slouch for your slouch boot, so you can make them as gathered as tightly or as loosely as you want. Give you a slightly different look depending on which you choose. And once you have it the way you want it to, we're going to go ahead and sew that down so that it will stay that way. And again, using black thread here, it's not the nicest look, but it'll help you to see this hopefully as I'm doing it. I'm going to use, to sew these gathers down, I'm going to use a zigzag set to a little kind of small stitch. And I'm just going to zigzag right up the seam here. see that? And that will set that slouch. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Again, setting for my long gathering stitch. I'm going to gather. I'm going to set the gathers in with the little short zigzag. That's how that looks so far. I'm going to clip some of these threads. I'm obviously not being super careful with this for the sake of time. You will probably want to take a little more care when you're sewing your boots, but I think you'll get the general idea here. Okay, so that's the upper part. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to attach this. This is going to be the toe of the boot. You kind of see how that's coming together. And this is not as hard as it looks. One thing you're going to want to do to make your life much easier is to put little clips in the curves. Not too deep. Just little clips. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it so that your fabric will stretch a little, so that when you're trying to make curved parts go to curved parts, that it's a little easier. So again, little tiny snips. And what that will do is make something that was curved, allow it to be stretched out straight, which makes it much easier to sew. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put right sides together, and you want to line up the middle of the boot to the middle of the toe part here. Now you should probably mark this beforehand, but for the sake of time I'm just going to kind of wing it here. And then what you're going to do is just kind of line your fabric up along the top, and you can see even though it's curved, you can, with these clips, you can kind of pull it out straight. Use as many pins as you want. There is going to be a little overhang here on the end, and that's fine. I want that to be that way, so I'm not going to, it doesn't match up perfectly. We're going to fold that back for the velcro on the back of the boot. Again, matching up edges, right side to right side. And you can see how those curved edges make a nice straight line, which is much easier to sew. So then we're going to take that to the machine and just go ahead and, again with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, we're going to start right here, not over here, right here. It doesn't really matter if you start here, but you don't need to start until and take your time. You want to be careful. You'll see there's little ridges, and if you sew those over, you'll have a bump in your finished seam, so you just want to kind of avoid those and flatten them out as you go. Take your time. If I wasn't doing this on camera, I'd be doing it a lot more carefully, but again, I just want you to get the idea. So you can see how that got sewed on. Here's one of those ridges I was talking about. And you can see I didn't do a great job, but it'll make a little wrinkle in your top if you don't smooth it out. But anyway, you can see what will happen here. It's starting to look like a boot. Okay, so now what I do here is I clip the seam allowance to about 1/8 of an inch, so about half of what it was, being really careful not to cut into your other fabric. And again, you can also just kind of make some little clips along the curved part here. It'll make it lie more nicely on your finished boot along this seam here. Okay, I'm going to stop the video for a minute because I think we're running out of time, and we'll probably do the second part to this video.